Okay, let's unpack this. We are diving deep today into a policy that, well, represents a really aggressive top-down overhaul of the U.S. military.
That's right. Our mission is a close look at Executive Order 14185. The title is Restoring America's Fighting Force.
Hmm.
This is pretty foundational for the Department of Defense, the DoD.
Mm.
Just for context, President Trump signed this back on January 27, 2025. It hit the Federal Register, became official February 3rd.
That title, Restoring America's Fighting Force, I mean, it immediately makes you think the force was somehow broken, right?
Exactly. And Section 1 jumps right in with the stated purpose.
So what's the administration claiming this order is supposed to do?
Well, the stated goal on paper is a firm commitment to meritocracy, eliminating race-based and sex-based discrimination in the armed forces.
Okay.
The language really emphasizes, making sure no individual is preferred or disadvantaged just because of their sex, race, ethnicity, color, or creed. It frames it all as necessary for readiness and performance.
Okay, that sounds pretty clear, like standard anti-discrimination language. But then the document pivots almost immediately, doesn't it? It identifies the source of the problem it wants to fix.
It does, and that's where the controversy really kicks in.
What evidence does it actually give? It claims existing DEI programs, diversity, equity, and inclusion, are creating the very discrimination they're supposed to solve.
That is the central argument. The EAO basically says these recent DEI programs and what it calls their attendant race and sex preferences are undermining crucial military things.
Yeah.
Leadership, merit, unit cohesion.
So therefore,
Therefore, the argument goes, they erode lethality and force readiness. It connects DEI directly to a less effective military.
and it doesn't stop there. It accuses these programs of invidious race and sex discrimination and violating service members' consciences. That phrase, invidious discrimination, sounds serious. What does that mean here?
It's strong legal language. Invidious isn't just any discrimination. It implies it's hostile, harmful, based on unfair characteristics.
Yeah.
The EO is using really the strongest terms to label DEI initiatives as fundamentally damaging and maybe even unconstitutional.
So it's setting up this conflict. It's either DEI and preferences or it's meritocracy and a ready force. You can't have both, according to this order.
That's the premise.
And just to be clear for everyone listening, this policy isn't small scale. It applies across the entire Department of Defense, and it includes the Coast Guard, which is under Homeland Security.
That's right. Sweeping. So, okay, let's look at how it actually tries to dismantle this structure, moving from the idea to the action.
Right, the implementation. Sections 3 and 4 seem key here. The complete abolition of the DEI bureaucracy, as it calls it. Let's start with how they define a DEI office in Section 3A. It seems incredibly broad.
Oh, it is. It's designed to capture almost any structure involved with identity politics. The EO defines a DEI office mainly by two purposes. First, if it influences hiring or employment regarding race, sex, color, or ethnicity,
Okay.
unless it's doing so through what the order calls colorblind and sex-neutral hiring processes.
Which implies that any office factoring race or sex into staffing, maybe to fix underrepresentation, gets caught in this net.
Pretty much. And the second purpose is promoting different treatment or giving special benefits to people based on race, sex, color, or ethnicity.
So if you have, say, a mentorship program aimed specifically at a certain demographic group, that office is now defined as a DEI office.
Under this definition, yes. It seems designed to capture things that might have been seen as standard outreach or support programs.
So we're not just talking about closing one main office. It sounds like eliminating the whole concept of identity-focused efforts.
That seems to be the intent. And Section 4 lays out the command to abolish these things very strictly. The Secretaries of Defense and Homeland Security have to get rid of every DEI office, plus, and this is interesting, any vestiges of DEI offices.
Vestiges, that's a powerful word. What does that practically mean? Getting rid of ghosts?
It means they have to go deeper.
Yeah.
Sub-offices, specific programs, initiatives, maybe even certain job functions within other offices. If they were set up to promote what the order calls a race-based preference system that subverts meritocracy or promotes unconstitutional discrimination or divisive concepts or gender ideology.
So you can't just rename the office or hide the function somewhere else.
Exactly. It's aimed at preventing that. It's about structurally cleansing, as you said, the DoD of these specific functions and ideas.
But it's not just looking forward. The order demands looking back, too. Section 5 requires this pretty aggressive internal review.
Yeah, and quickly. Within 90 days, the Secretary of Defense had to document all the past DEI actions and, crucially, all instances of race and sex discrimination linked to those programs. plus any activities promoting a preference system.
That sounds like building a case after the fact, like creating an official record to justify why this drastic policy change was needed.
That's certainly one interpretation. It aims to create a paper trail showing, from the administration's view, the failures and harms of the previous approach, justifying the need to abolish it. It provides the evidence for the narrative.
Okay, so that's dismantling the structure. Now let's shift to the ideas themselves. Section 6, protecting American values. This moves into the training, the education, the very foundation of the armed forces.
Right, and the language here is, frankly, intense. The DoD and armed forces are forbidden from promoting or advancing theories labeled as un-American, divisive, discriminatory, radical, extremist, and irrational.
Wow, that's quite a list.
It really signals the ideological strength of this shift.
So what specifically is banned? It lists 3 categories of prohibited concepts. What's the first one?
First, it bans divisive concepts and race or sex stereotyping or scapegoating. And to understand what that means, the EO points back to an earlier executive order 1300-950 from 2020.
Ah.
Generally, those divisive concepts included things like teaching that the U.S. is fundamentally or systemically racist or sexist, or that individuals are inherently biased or responsible for past actions based on their race or sex.
So practically speaking, if you're running training at a service academy, you couldn't have a session discussing systemic barriers, for example, or historical critiques that might touch on collective responsibility.
That seems to be the direct implication for controlling the curriculum, yes. The second banned category is teaching the theory that America's founding documents are racist or sexist.
That's a direct challenge to certain historical perspectives, like those associated with critical race theory.
It is. It mandates a rejection of that specific critique within military education.
Which means, if you think about the ethics being taught, future military leaders have to be trained with a specific, positive view of the nation's founding.
That appears to be the goal. And the third prohibited category is gender ideology.
Okay, what does that mean in this context?
Well, the EO defines it by pointing to another EO from January 20th, 2025 called Defending Women from Gender Ideology Extremism and Restoring Biological Truth to the Federal Government.
So it doesn't spell it out here, but it incorporates that other order's definition by reference, likely meaning the military has to align with specific biological definitions of sex.
That's the strong implication, yes, affecting potentially everything from fitness standards to housing, bathrooms, healthcare, anything sex-specific.
And it's not just about banning things. Section 6C actually mandates what must be taught, right?
Correct. It requires a review of educational institutions to make sure they teach that America and its founding documents remain the most powerful force for good in human history.
That's not neutral. That's mandating a specific positive interpretation of history and civics for everyone in uniform. This feels less like administration and more like shaping ideology.
It definitely leans that way.
Thinking about the people involved, the service members, this changes their training, how they understand history, potentially morale, maybe even who decides to join in the future.
Absolutely. Which brings up the question of speed and enforcement. Section 7 lays out the timeline for all this.
And it was fast. Secretaries had to issue detailed guidance on abolishing DEI offices and the curriculum stuff within just 30 days.
Extremely fast for changes this big. Suggest it was a very high priority. Then, within 180 days, they had to report back on progress and suggest any further actions needed. Kind of a check-in.
Okay, and then there are the final bits, sections 8 and 9. Standard stuff mostly, severability, general provisions.
Mostly standard legal boilerplate, yes. Severability means if one part gets struck down by a court, the rest can still stand. General provisions clarify it doesn't override other laws or budget processes.
But there's one crucial bit in section 9C, right? About lawsuits.
Yes, very important for anyone wondering about legal challenges. Section 9C explicitly states this order doesn't create any new right or benefit that someone can sue over.
Meaning, an individual service member can't go to court saying, I was harmed because you violated this EO.
Exactly. It's an internal directive to the executive branch about how it should operate. It's not creating private rights for individuals to enforce in court.
Okay, so bringing this all together, after digging into the details, what's the big picture takeaway from EO 42185? It feels like more than just shifting some office boxes around.
Oh, definitely. This deep dive really shows an aggressive attempt to redefine the core principles for promotion, training, education, basically the culture across the entire U.S. military. By labeling DEI offices, certain historical critiques, certain ideas about gender as un-American or undermining meritocracy, it aims for their complete removal.
So, For you, the listener, why does this specific order matter? It seems to hit right at these huge debates we have about fairness, merit, what American identity even means, but all playing out within the military structure. It sets a very specific direction for future leadership.
And here's something to think about. Remember that 90-day review mandated back in Section 5, the one documenting past DEI actions and supposed discrimination?
Yeah, the one that felt like building a case.
Right. Given the order's stated goal is eliminating discrimination, how might the specific findings of that review be used later? Could those documented examples become fuel for future policy fights, maybe even laws, defining exactly what meritocracy means or doesn't mean in practice for promotions or assignments? That transition from internal review to potentially codified definitions, that could be the next chapter.